Hello and very warm welcome to all of you in this edition of Inside. I'm Anurag Punetha with you. India stands as a model for many emerging democracies around the world. Free and fair elections are the hallmark of a well-functioning democracy. While we are justifiably proud of our system, our democracy, but there are a number of areas which need to be strengthened for us to realize the true potential of a well-functioning democracy. There has been a growing concern over the years in India about several aspects of our electoral system. The Election Commission has made changes in several areas to respond to some of the concerns, but there have also been a number of committees which have examined the major issues pertaining to our electoral system and made a number of recommendations, but there remain some critical issues that might need legislative action to bring about the required changes. So the Election Commission of India, in a major development, submitted an affidavit before the Supreme Court asking the apex court to give it the power to deregister a political party. At present, the poll panel, the Election Commission of India is empowered to register a party only, but it cannot deregister any political party. The Representation of the People Act 1951 has no explicit provision for deregistration of a political party. The poll panel also reportedly supported a plea that convicted person should be stopped from forming any political party. The Supreme Court asked the Government of India whether it was right to allow a convicted politician to hold a party position and decide the candidates for elections, which he could not contest himself. The petition filed by lawyer activist Mr. Ashwini Upadhyay also demanded that the poll panel should have the power to ensure inner party democracy. In the affidavit, the Election Commission also reportedly lamented that it has been writing to the central governments for last 20 years to consider amending the act and give the commission the appropriate authority to deregister political party, but to no avail. The commission said that it first wrote to the Union Law Ministry in 1998, urged the necessity of giving it the power in view of the fact that many political parties get registered but never contest an election. The Supreme Court also asked the Election Commission to file a reply within 2 weeks on a plea seeking direction for common electoral rolls for Parliament, Assembly and local body polls to save public money and manpower. A bench comprising Chief Justice Mr. Deepak Mishra and Justice A.N. Khanwilkar also asked Attorney General to assist the court in the matter. The apex court had on October 13 last year sought the response of the Centre and the Election Commission of the plea. The petition has also sought direction to the authorities to take steps to use totalizer for counting of the vote. Totalizer is a device which allows votes cast in about 14 polling booths to be counted together. It referred to the provision of the Conduct of the Election Rules 1961, under which the votes in the EVMs are to be counted polling stations wide. And they said that that led to the situation where the voting patterns in various localities or pockets become known to everyone. So we are going to discuss about the issues if implemented, would have a huge windfall on the India's electoral reforms, with 3 guests. And joining me for the discussion, Major General Anil Verma. He is retired and head of the ADR, Association for Democratic Reforms. Very warm welcome, Mr. Verma.
Thank you.
My second guest is Professor Amarjit Singh Narang, political analyst. Very warm welcome, Narang sir. And my third guest is Mr. Anup Bhatnagar. He is a senior journalist. Very warm welcome you as well. Mr. Verma, my first question. Chief Justice of India asked, that what you cannot do individually, you cannot try and do collectively. What's your take on about this? That Election Commission should be given the power to deregister body. If given, do you think that it would be a huge windfall of the India's electoral reforms?
Yeah, see, ADR has been fighting for these type of reforms since a long time. And this one single reform, if it comes about, if the Election Commission is given the power to deregister a political party, it will be a very big boon towards the electoral reforms. That's what we feel. Because at the last count during the 2014 general elections, there were about 1,800 political parties, out of which just 21% or 22% contested elections. Now the rest of them what is their purpose exactly? Is it just to get income tax exemption, or is it to convert black money into white? We don't know.
Oh, yeah.
So the Election Commission and societies, NGOs like us, we have been saying that if successively these political parties do not contest elections, let's say 5 years, 10 years, lay down some limit. If they don't contest elections, then deregister them. What is the point of having so many political parties? It's just a drain on the exchequer because they get so many facilities.
Yeah.
So we feel strongly that yes, this thing should be given. But like I said, it will require amendments to the various laws, and ultimately the parliament will have to do it. And the political will to do serious electoral reform is absolutely lacking.
I mean, Election Commission also written to has also told the Supreme Court that Commission has been writing to the government, successive government since last 20 years, but to no avail.
Yeah, 20 years have gone past, and the governments have changed. Different dispensations are there, but they are not serious about it.
Okay, Mr. Narang, your comment. You think, can you wrap on the entire issue? Because rightly, Chief Justice of India asking, okay, you should not be doing collectively what you cannot do individually. So, your comment on this.
Let me first make a general observation. You see, what we mean by elections. Elections in democracy is two parts. One, it is a system. It is an ideology. It is a method to run democracy, to have, because we have a representative democracy. Second is the procedure to conduct elections.
Right.
Okay. Now, as far as procedure to conduct elections is concerned, in India, in spite of diversity, in spite of large size, in spite of illiteracy, etc., we have praise all over the world that our elections are conducted reasonably free and fair. But as far as the system is concerned, there are serious issues, which you have already raised in your introduction, and Major General Vij has also said. The question in any democracy, because I am a student of elections, not only in India, in general also.
Okay.
No, anything which is procedural is fine as far as laws are concerned. But democracy just does not run only through procedure and by laws. It needs a commitment, an understanding of that value, that yes, we are committed. Now, what has happened in India is, unfortunately, we are talking of only procedure. What is happening in reality is that somehow we have to win elections without any commitment, not without any commitment to the system or the cause. Important is to win power. Power for what is secondary now. So therefore, all these issues are coming. Money power, muscle power, media power, all these things are coming up again and again. Now, particularly right from the beginning, when elections were introduced in India, there have been problems. Particularly from 1917s, if you remember, Jayaprakash Narayan, he appointed a committee in 1974 under Justice Tarkunde to suggest electoral reforms.
Okay.
From that time, it has picked up both in civil society, in media, and everything, that we need electoral reforms. Then Supreme Court came actively on that, and particularly Election Commission for last 20 years has been acting very fast on that. And first time in fact, if I'm correct, in 1990, Goswami committee was appointed. Then it also started.
Goswami committee in 1990. After that, Mr. Vora
committee in 1993, and so many things. After that, it picked up what you can say, some sort of a formal procedure. But outcomes have, as General Vij saying, it has been very lukewarm. Lukewarm in the sense that every political party feels that we get out of this, others may not get. So therefore, there is a lack of consensus in all these types of situations. So therefore, even if you make these procedural changes, the question is, no, as he said about political parties, no, you take a very small thing. If you have to form an association in your residence, you have to have some sort of go back to Registration of Societies Act. For political parties in India, there is no law, absolutely no law which governs political parties, except that Representative of People's Act, which gives Election Commission an authority to recognize parties. That's all. And that recognition also has on the basis of numbers, nothing else. If you score this much of votes, you are national party, you are regional party, you are registered party, you are. So there's no law which governs political parties, except that amendment about defection which came up. That also is something different. So therefore, whatever you law make, unless you have a commitment to the democratic process, you will find the ways. Already, as you have said, and now this justice has said that You yourself are convicted, your wife is in charge of
But
that.
why did they allow him? I mean, let's say the major political party, either Congress or let's say some left parties or BJP, why did they allow to give their adversaries to raise a party?
So that's
And
what I'm
first
saying.
they defect and then they raise the party. So it may be the kind of a roadblock for their success as well.
No, that's what I'm saying. Problem is, as General Sahab very rightly said, a lack of political will, apprehensions that this may affect my chances, rather than thinking in a broader system that we are committed to value. Win, no problem. Lose, no problem. But here what has happened in unnecessary unfortunately in Indian democracy is power for the sake of power. No commitment to ideology, development. These are all superfluous things that we are committed to this. But other it is, so to win that power, any mechanism is right. So whatever procedure you establish, there are ways to overcome those types of situations. So unless there is a situation, pressure from below, pressure from media, to have some sort of a commitment to the democratic values, to democratic culture, to democratic norms, other procedures will automatically take care. But still since we are not doing that, so procedures have become very important to that, and therefore electoral reforms in various areas, whether it is media, party, etc., money power, muscle power, in all these cases, till that time, would definitely need some procedural changes, so that something is out of that.
Okay, Anupji, I mean, your take on about the Supreme Court is asking Government of India that give me the answer within 2 weeks, and then and Election Commission is going to Supreme Court and asking, okay, give us the power to deregister body. Do you think, if implemented, it will be a huge step in reforming?
It will be a very big jump. But the problem is that why every time Supreme Court has to
give them
to intervene.
Okay.
You see, this is absolutely there is no consensus, there is no political will. Within the political parties, every time Election Commission calls meeting, there is no consensus on many issues. And all these reforms have been implemented because of the Supreme Court intervention.
Right.
And whenever there is some inconvenient point, then Parliament or executive comes out with some way out. Like this conviction of sitting MPs and MLAs. First they said no, the appeal is pending, so they can continue. But again Supreme Court came in the picture, said nothing is doing. From the day you are convicted, you are out. And as far as these political parties are concerned, see, if I am not wrong, see, almost 1,500 parties are not contesting. So virtually they are dead political parties. Virtually they are dead political parties. The Ashwini Upadhyay, my impression is talking about those political parties which are active. They have symbols and everything they have, but their conduct is not appropriate to the
electoral system.
And Election Commission is saying we do not have power. So unless
at least give us a power, or
at least give us power. That is the thing.
And how they can forward? I mean, especially in 2013 when this Supreme Court passed the judgment of barring those candidates who gets convicted. I mean, more than 2 years. I mean, so do you think that this would be a major step after that verdict, especially if implemented?
Yeah, Lily Thomas judgment, I think you're referring to, that was a landmark judgment because of which this thing happened. And in case, if I may add, I think there is another petition of Ashwini Upadhyay in which he is also asking for lifetime ban on politicians who are convicted. That is one part. The second thing is also that in case any politician is convicted or not convicted, I would say, where charges have been framed, cognizance has been taken, and the offence merits 5 years or more punishment, such people should also not be permitted to contest elections. That is another proposal which has been going on for quite some time. Even the Election Commission has been asking for that. So that is, I think, another thing which is under consideration of the Supreme Court. Because like I said earlier also, whenever there is anything, a seeming electoral or political reform which will go against the interests of the political parties, they all join hands, and that consensus, so-called consensus, is never formed, because they all know that it will affect them. I just
But
want.
it did not happen in the case of the disqualification of the convicted candidates. I mean, Supreme Court had to intervene, and Supreme Court prevailed.
But that was a Supreme Court judgment, so they could not do anything. So that's what I'm saying, that 90% of the electoral and political reforms which have taken place in India so far are through Supreme Court or High Court judgments.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's right.
there it tells you the whole story as to our politicians are not serious about political or electoral reforms. But what I wanted to add a little bit on what Professor Saab said. One is the voting per se and the conduct of the elections is a very small part of democracy. It happens once in 5 years in a state or in the country or
general
wherever,
election.
and then after that they forget about it.
Yeah.
The issue is that, you know, for the rest of the 5 years term, these people should be accountable, they should be responsible. There is no accountability, there is no responsibility because there is no law governing them and they will never let it happen. Why are there two sets of standards for the common man and a different one for the politicians? You take anything, I can give you so many examples. FCRA case. ADR had filed a petition in Delhi High Court 2014 and won the case against BJP and Congress for having accepted foreign donations. Lo and behold, 2017 16 finance bill, the finance minister says that 2010 FCRA Act is amended. You can accept foreign donations with retrospective effect with a certain percent, like if the owner is an Indian but his holding is more than 50%, the company, even if it is registered abroad,
They can give the money to you.
Okay. And to top it, now in this last finance bill, the finance minister has quietly introduced another amendment, wherein the 1976 FCRA Act, which is a dead horse, by the way, because the 2010 FCRA replaced it. Therefore, 1976 has no meaning.
Okay.
Even that has been amended. So, why was it done? Because ADR had filed a contempt petition in the Supreme Court. The reason was basically that all the cases under which there were 15 donations which they had accepted were pre-2009. So, they were based on the FCRA of 1976. They amended 2010, not realizing that the case still holds, the High Court's judgment is valid. So, now they are trying to amend a dead horse.
Okay.
So, this is the type of integrity which we are seeing on ground, which a lot of people don't get to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one example I have given you. I can give you so many.
I mean, the political parties normally find a way to avoid any such. Okay. There's time for the short break, and we'll come back. We'll also discuss that. Okay, is this the only way out that the Supreme Court of India comes with a verdict to implement such reforms? Is this the only way out, or the political parties will budge under the pressure of the civil society, or let's say the general public who wants to reform the electoral process of India? We'll discuss after the short break. Welcome back. We are discussing the Election Commission of India in a major development, submitted an affidavit before Supreme Court asking the Apex Court to give it the power to deregister a political party. At present, the poll panel is empowered to only register a political party, but it cannot deregister any political party. But Professor Narang, I was asking you in 2013 that the verdict came of the Supreme Court to bar convicted criminals. Do you think it was a landmark judgment in terms of cleaning the process, or it has some lacuna, some shortcomings?
No, you see, if you remember, in 2001, there was that committee appointed to review the Constitution of India. And that committee's recommendation was, or say whatever you say, study was, that the major cause of the decline of democracy in India is criminalization of politics.
Yeah.
They gave it the most emphasis. So, this criminalization of politics is a very serious matter. What does this criminalization mean? What was happening, if you remember, before 1970s or up to say 1980s also, political parties were using criminals to help them. To gag, to what you call booth capturing. So,
to use muscle power and the
muscle
money power.
They were using.
Yeah.
But soon criminals realize that we are helping them. Why? So they started themselves contesting elections. To begin with, as independents, through small parties and all that, and then political parties found that this is something different, and all major political parties have started giving tickets to the criminals. Not only criminal-minded people, to the criminals against whom charges are there, and then many of them start winning elections, and also some of them became ministers, both center as well as various states. So it's a very serious issue. There are various serious studies. In one of the studies, I remember a researcher, 2009 to 13 or 14 something, he collected the affidavits. No, this is because now it is mandatory. These affidavits were about 6,900 something like that, and just exact figures I don't know. And out of them he found that 18% of the people who were contesting elections had criminal cases pending against them. Then there are studies which clearly make that how many MPs in Lok Sabha, how many MPs in Rajya Sabha, how many in state assemblies had criminal cases pending against them. Now this is one. Now therefore the question is, particularly when you are convicted, but now but also it is a very double-edged weapon. A suggestion has been made that against whom charge has been framed, he or she should not be allowed to connection, or one who has been convicted only for 2 years. So these things are matters of what you can say ambiguity. But these laws can be used as well as misused. Now getting a person convicted for 2 years may be little easier because these are at lower courts. And tomorrow High Court and up to Supreme Court, they say that this was nothing but this person was totally innocent. What about his political career? So these are also that types of issue. A person against whom only an FIR has been filed, and then police investigation is under naturally control or say pressure of the ruling party. And charge sheet can also be easily filed. Now if that charge sheet is filed and you say that person cannot contest election, so this is again a situation. Later on court may convict him and all that.
But I mean, political vendetta can make can stop
so
the person to contest
these things are very serious. So therefore the way out is there has to be some bar on convicted people, not against those who have been charged. Again convicted for particular types of crimes. Because there are political crimes. 144, violation of 144, all these types of situations. So convicted for certain purposes for certain areas. But more important than is there should be fast track courts. Now for instance we have seen latest case in Tamil Nadu. The person remained chief minister because she was on bail. After conviction also. After conviction also. So therefore this has to be very comprehensive. But as General said, the problem is not of procedure. Problem is unless you yourself, why should political parties, let there be consensus in all political parties that we will not give ticket to political criminals. But why every political party feels that my criminals are honest, there is a political vendetta against them, other parties' political criminals are criminals. So as I said in the beginning also, that democracy is basically based on democratic culture, value system, commitment to that. Procedures can easily be violated in one way or the other. Supreme Court fortunately so far has been respected, their decisions have been respected, but we also know the Supreme Court decisions had also been very politely violated.
Yeah, we have seen that in many of the cases. I mean, Anup sir, what is the way out? I mean, I'm asking you the legality of this, let's say this PIL or this affidavit. The Supreme Court has asked the Government of India to file the reply within 2 weeks. I mean, if they are happy, if they are content with the reply, what would be the outcome? What might be the outcome? Let's say they come out with a verdict, they come out with a judgment and give the power to the Election Commission to deregister a political party.
Supreme Court, what I feel, can do one thing. I mean, like they did in marital rape case issue, where they have increased the age from 15 years to 18 years.
Right.
In that exception provision. The Supreme Court said this exception should be read like this. So in section 29A of RP Act, Supreme Court
may give the power.
This section can be read like this: register and deregister. I mean, only two things vis-a-vis deregistering the political parties. I think that could be the one way. Or otherwise, there is a need for drastic changes in RP Act. You see, RP Act, the section 8 provides what type of cases are there under which you are convicted, and then you are debarred from contesting the election. So, like Lalu's case, I mean, for example, Lalu Shashikala, you see, Lalu is given 5 years.
The imprisonment.
Yeah, imprisonment. Now, after 5 years, Lalu is out from here. His matter is pending in High Court. Then he will go to Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And if everything takes, suppose 20 years, hypothetically, suppose it takes a total 20 years, or Supreme Court upheld.
Yeah.
Then his imprisonment will start from that day and minus already spent in jail.
Okay.
Then 5 years, maybe 4 years or 3 year remaining period.
Yeah.
Then 6 years disqualification.
So his entire life, the political life will be destroyed.
So if completely. If there is a prayer in the Supreme Court, lifetime ban, it is already, it is virtually lifetime ban.
Right.
On that, I agree that this convicted person should not be allowed to hold the to head the political party.
Okay.
That is fine. But here in RJD case, you see, all family members are coming, so you can't control them because everyone has equal right.
Okay, what about your take on or your impression about the Supreme Court is asking a person who cannot do individually can do collectively. I mean, he can form, a convicted person cannot fight the election, but he can form the political party and can choose the candidate where to fight and how to fight. I mean, so this is also a dichotomy of the entire electoral process.
Absolutely. If you see in the petition, you have mentioned various names. For example, Jayalalitha was there. Then this Om Prakash Chautala, Lalu, and there are so many others who have themselves. I mean, some of them were sitting in jails, and they are still the leaders of the party, and
they were deciding that who. I mean,
deciding who will get the tickets. So that I mean, the Supreme Court has also said that we cannot bar a person from voicing his opinion and expression and all that. But then due cognizance has to be taken of the person's background. I mean, if he is charged of serious offences and sitting in jail, how can you allow that person to be the president of the party or still be, sort of, or nominate some family member to run the party?
Yeah.
That's not on. So, there are a couple of other things which I wanted to say. This is, of course, deregistration, registration, one part. Like political parties coming under RTI.
Yeah.
Now, this has been going on. We got a full bench verdict of CIC in 2013 June, and nothing happened. The political parties refused to just come under the RTI, even though a full bench judgment had been given. So this is another case which is going on in the Supreme Court, where ADR is continuing in the battle. But the political parties, they feel basically that not from the opposition, but they will face more problems from their own people if they come under RTI. Okay. Because they will start asking, why are you giving ticket to so and so, or such like things. So basically that is why they are dead against the RTI thing. The second very important issue is political party funding. That muscle power thing is now a little I would say on the down this thing because of the elaborate security arrangements and conduct of the elections in phases in sensitive areas especially. But there is no dearth of money. I mean, it is humongous amount of money is being spent. What we get to know, the official picture is a tip of the iceberg.
I mean, despite all the efforts by the Election Commission, the money power is still increasing. I mean, the candidates are finding many ways to use the money
that is one part.
The voter.
But the main thing is that there is no cap, no ceiling on the political parties. On the candidate,
a candidate can spend on a certain amount of money.
Yes, 28 lakhs for the state election,
party can expend
and 70 lakhs for the parliament.
Yeah, okay.
But there is no limit on the political parties. Why not? Because they don't want it.
Yeah. So state funding can be the answer.
That is one of the suggested things. So what I am saying, this is a very important thing which has to there has to be a limit.
But there are many things I would be discussing after the short break. I mean, there are many things. One petition is asking to use the totalizer for counting of the votes. One petition is also about that the Supreme Court should intervene and make sure that the inner party democracy happens within the party. I mean, these are the steps that are being discussed in the court. And we will discuss after the short break what can be the way out. Welcome back. We are discussing the electoral reforms that are being discussed in various platforms. The Supreme Court of India asked the Government of India whether it was right to allow a convicted politician to hold a party position and decide the candidates for election, which he could not contest himself. The petition filed by lawyer and activist also demanded that the poll panel should have the power to ensure inner party democracy as well. But Professor Narang, despite all the looming despondency, I mean, within the system, political parties normally find a way out to not to fall in line. But don't you think that since last 20 years, something has happened? I mean, that things are happening. Some electoral reforms have been taking place. So this is a very gradual and slow process, but it's happening.
No doubt, it's happening. See, there are certain aspects which are very much in favor of democracy in India. One, the size of the country. Size of the country is so enormous that it's very difficult to impose anything on that democracy, and emergency was one of the
the brutal reminder.
Yes. Second is the diversity of this country. Because of the diversity of country, there is absolutely no possibility to impose any type of homogeneity. Within heterogeneity, there will be voices for democracy based on ethnicity, based on language, based on anything. So therefore, it is very crucial that our diversity is one of the, what we can say, a positive aspects to maintain democracy in India. Third is this tradition of civil control over the armed forces. And within armed forces also, because there is a diversity, and therefore hardly any chance of some sort of military takeover. So these are some positive aspects of democracy in India. Now, since democracy is there, and emergency experience has made it very clear that it must be, whatever you have to do, it has to be through democratic processes. So now democracy has to be improved. Now, in that, three developments last 20 years are very important. A, particularly after emergency, from emergency period on itself, a realization of the role of civil society. A consciousness within civil society, yes, if we have to do something, we have to be alive, we have to be awakened. So that civil society which came up during that emergency and after that emergency, that is still there and playing a very important role. This is a very important factor. Second, some sort of role taken over by the Supreme Court through this public interest litigation. And that the things in which it was never thought that Supreme Court can intervene, that Supreme Court is intervening and public gives legitimacy to that. So therefore, Supreme Court gets legitimacy from public of its own actions, and Supreme Court is playing a very important role.
Because the executive is not working?
Whatever reason.
Okay.
One may criticize that Supreme Court have taken over roles of executive, but legitimacy is coming from people. So therefore, that's Supreme Court's role. That is second. Third very important aspect in that is that some of the institutions like Election Commission itself. Election Commission, in spite of various types of difficulties and all those types of things, in spite of the fact that it doesn't have that necessary support from the Constitution as say Supreme Court has, it has been playing an important role as far as conduct of elections are concerned. Any political party, they may have minor criticism against Election Commission this way, that way, etc. But all over the world, Election Commission of India has been. So these institutions, and now recently you have said that Election Commission again have filed affidavit, irrespective of whatever government says. So therefore, these factors, and then fourthly, the emergence of powerful media in India. And particularly this electronic media coming up, press coming up, and all those, and media reaching right up to the village level, rural level. So all these factors are definitely important for maintenance of democracy, for some sort of sustenance of democracy, and improvement of democracy. But all said in that, we still, as he's saying, myself saying, that still we are more concerned about procedural aspects of democracy. The real issue is substantial aspects of democracy. Those substantial aspects of democracy are still lacking. But as you very rightly said, minimum improvements are going on. But important thing that if these importance come through the will of political parties and from the will of legislators themselves, then it will be something very respectable, credible, all the time Supreme Court doing in that. You should just be small event if you remember that Rahul Gandhi's case of torning some papers. What was that? That was a process, political parties' consensus to make Supreme Court judgment null and void. So therefore, if political parties have a consensus, so they can overcome Supreme Court judgments also. How long Supreme Court can go? So ultimately, processes are over because of these pressures. Ultimately, now again we are discussing that. So improvements will be there. They have to be there, but it will be good if political parties themselves come to a consensus, the legislators themselves comes to a consensus, and they try to understand that survival of democracy in India is ultimately in their interest.
Okay, legally, if you can tell us or distinguish, I mean, there are a couple of things that's happening in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is asking Government of India, what's your response about that whether we should give the power to Election Commission to deregister or not. There is one petition is also to use the totalizer. There is one petition also to implement the inner party democracy. So I mean, technically the Supreme Court can give and can come out with a verdict and compel the Government of India to use this.
It is a very sad state of affair, because see what happened. You see political party in a democracy. BJP is having, CPI is having, CPM is having, Congress used to have.
Okay.
But what about Samajwadi Party, RJD, and AIDMK, DMK? That Sharad Pawar's party,
NCP.
NCP.
Yeah.
And
the couple of parties in Haryana.
All regional parties.
All regional parties are
name.
not having this
inner party democracy.
But the main political parties are having to some extent, to a large extent.
Yeah.
But especially I am pointing out left parties and BJP. I mean, you will not find this family tree is growing. See. Number two, as far as this another thing, totalizer thing.
Totalizer.
Earlier it was when there was a ballot papers were mixed up, so that
it used to happen at the
it used to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
And number three, now here if we are demanding totalization, it is a valid thing, because in every pocket, those who have the money power, they are capable to find out.
I mean, which section of the locality is not voting or voting?
Is voting or not voting.
Okay.
So that is very essential to
use this totalizer.
But to approach for each and everything to the Supreme Court, this is a sad reflection on the executive and the political parties. Okay. Why we are troubling
why
Supreme
we are
Court?
giving going up
everything.
Okay.
This totalization is important from another aspect also. You see, now these booths they are very small. Hardly maximum voters will be 1,000 in that. Now, in those types of localities, there can be a substantial section of minorities, substantial section of any other vulnerable minority group. Now, through this local counting, you immediately come to know that this particular section as a whole, not individuals, have voted against a political party.
I still remember that at the time of the UP election, the Samajwadi Party, one strong man threatened his candidate, I mean the voters. We'll get to know that who is voting for us or who is not voting for us.
Therefore, it is very important that this type of mixing is there, so that you are not able to identify, leave apart individual, at least groups. Then it becomes very problem. And particularly if you get this institution for 3 or 4 say booths, then you find that this particular community, this particular caste, etc., is voting particularly for that party or against that party, and some sort of say action, not a formal action, informal action is initiated. So it is against this what you call a spirit of election.
Okay. Mr. Verma, I mean, your understanding about this 2014, post 2014, the present dispensation at the center, they have come with a full majority. The kind of initiative this government has taken, do you think is good enough? Or let's say the half step they have taken, this government has, especially the Prime Minister, started this debate of one nation, one election. They have come out with the amendment of this funding of the political party, who can fund and how they can fund. Do you think that this is in the right direction, or something more tangible should be doing?
I'll briefly comment on all the issues, starting with the inner party democracy and transparency. In one of the reports, I don't remember, 170th Law Commission report or somewhere, it said that an organization which does not have internal democracy cannot be expected to do anything outside. Now, unfortunately, that is the state in most of our political parties.
Okay, yeah.
Elections are not held. Same people continue as presidents and office bearers for a very long time. The methodology followed for granting tickets to people is not known.
Yeah.
It is one person who is controlling the party because he or she controls the money, and he or she has the power to throw you out. So that is why everybody is afraid and they toe the line. So unless there is some transparency in the functioning of the political parties and there is some internal democracy where a proper procedure is followed,
Okay.
how to elect office bearers, how to give tickets, it's very important. The second part is the political party funding. This is an extremely serious matter, as I mentioned earlier also, because when now you asked me about the current dispensation, I would like to say yes, some baby steps have been taken,
Okay.
but they are not serious, and by and large the public doesn't understand what is the game behind it.
What is the game?
For
plan?
example,
Okay.
for example, the reduction of the thing from 20,000 to 2,000 rupees. Okay, everybody says it's a very good step and all that, but why wasn't it made zero? That you make all payments by check or by digital means or something, because even now 1999 rupees ka you can keep making payments in cash. This electoral bond scheme which has been introduced, it is totally, I mean, the finance minister calls it a step towards transparency. I don't know how it is transparency. It is opaqueness. When you are hiding the name and identity of the donor, you have removed all limits. Earlier it was 7.5% of the average profit of last 3 years that a corporate could donate.
Okay.
You removed that limit. Now who's donating how much and where it is coming from? Is black being converted? Is shell companies doing it, or foreign fund is coming? Who will know? Anybody can buy electoral bonds. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a lot of difference between what they say
And
and
what
what actually they do.
Okay, and what about the one nation, one election electoral?
See, again, it has its pros and cons. It's a matter of a debate. They say that the governance issues suffer and all that. What is the need of the Prime Minister and the Chief Minister to roam all over the country when there is a state or a by-election taking place? Is there a need? They should focus on their governance.
Technically, it may not be Nari, but let's say the people is liking one person or one 2%.
Okay, I'm just coming to that.
Okay.
Take the federal structure of our country. What will happen is, there was a study conducted by some Mr. Mukherjee in which he analyzed the last so many elections in the state assemblies and all, and he found that 61% of the times whenever the state election and the general elections were held together, the party which wins in the general election wins in the states also.
So you are trying to say that
61%
the fundament,
this is statistics.
Federalism
So
may
what
come
will
into danger.
so what will happen to the regional parties and the other parties if you go in for this system? I'm not saying that it is bad. It has a lot of good points also, because this frequent disruption and all that what they are talking about is fine, but it needs to be debated, discussed, and then a decision should be taken. Because earlier the election commission was against it, but now slowly I think they are also talking about they will be ready by September or October to do it and all that sort of thing. But the recommendation which was given earlier by the election commission, I think that is a more sensible one, whereas you have two sets of elections. Because right now what will be required is that you either extend the assembly dates of the house, or you have to curtail. This requires constitutional amendments. So to bring the disruption to the minimum, if you have two sets of elections wherein wherever they are coinciding, you have that and another one, that may be a better option instead of the entire nation going in for election in one go.
Okay. Short answer from you, I mean this, okay, whatever the baby steps this government has been taking and whatever has been happening, I mean let's say this may be the pressure of the civil society, journalist or the common man, I mean to put some reforms in the electoral system. But these steps should be taken as a right direction, in the right direction. If the election commission has gone to the Supreme Court and asking them to give the power, whatever will happen will happen for the good or not?
See, one positive aspect of this is that whatever intentions may be of the government or not anything, important is that a lot of things have come in the public domain.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is very important. Again, we have got an opportunity to discuss these issues, to give our opinions on that issue. Civil society, media, everyone is talking about those. So electoral reforms once again have come in the public domain. This is one thing very positive, arising out of what the statements Prime Minister, President, whosoever is giving that.
Okay.
The issue of electoral reforms have come into the public domain in a very big way. It is very important. Things are being discussed, things are being discussed.
Yeah.
This is one. Secondly, because of this, PIL has been fined. Now, Supreme Court will going to take serious issues about that, as he said. Now, the question is, one nation, one election. We discussed this right in this forum itself again. This has also pros and cons. Issue of federalism has come into forum. So, all these issues, I see at least this as at least something which has come into the public domain and which is very good at least. Intentions, public will take care, civil society will take care, elections will take care, what are coming up as people will pass judgments and all that. But what is most important for me is that issue of election reforms have come into public domain in a very big way, which is a very positive aspect.
Do you also agree, man, this entire discussion or debate has come into the public domain, and at least the general public is discussing it?
Yeah, it is good. But you see, in earlier period after independence, I think 2 elections were on the same line.
Yeah.
One nation, one election.
Yeah.
But thereafter, you see, assembly
After
has
67, I think.
yeah,
that
you
is-
see, election. This assembly has 5-year tenure.
Yeah.
So, suppose in between I resign.
Something happens.
and recommend, then what will happen? It means some opposition party are within the from that party. Someone will have to. But if cabinet recommends for dissolution, that aspect has to be looked into very carefully. I mean, if I'm not wrong.
Okay. So let's hope for the best. I mean, something is happening. So at the end, we can say the elections are the most important and integral part of the politics and democratic system of governance. Democracy can function only upon the faith that the elections are free and fair and not manipulated and rigged, but for the certain reasons. The system of democracy is not working properly, and the common man feels that there is something wrong in the electoral process. So after the Supreme Court verdict a couple of years ago on disqualification on conviction for insulting the national honors, this move seems to be in the right direction. At least the discourse has come into the public domain, and it might be putting pressure on the, let's say, on the judiciary or the executive as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Anil Verma, for coming here talking. Thank you very much, Professor Narang, and thank you very much, Bhatnagar sir, for coming here and talking to us. That's all we have in this edition of Inside. Thank you very much for watching us.